What's so funny? Lessons from Canada's Leacock+Medal for Humor Writing by Dick Bourgeois Doyle. Lesson number 2. Sometimes the packaging is everything. This is a review of the 1948 medal winner Sarah+Binks by Paul Hebert. The bookshelf at home holds a first edition, first printing copy of that 1948 Leacock+Medal winner Sarah+Binks. I bought it last year from a used bookstore in Winnipeg. The store considered it a treasured old friend, and it sent it to me inside 2 layers of packaging. It must have considered the book valuable. And the book does bear the name and the signature of the author Paul Hebert. But I treasure the book because of another scribble in the front page. It's the names of the original owners, Don and Helen Penner, a special Manitoba couple who changed laws and affected the practice of medicine all across Canada. When they were in their 70s, the Penners packed up their books and other possessions, possibly my book too, to pass a decade of their retirement years helping out in hospitals in Africa. So it's this story wrapped around my book that gives it special value to me. In the same way, Sarah+Binks the book, which is a poetry collection packaged in a biography-style narrative, has special value because of the premise wrapped around it. It is a different book, and it always surprises me a little when I meet people who have never heard of Sarah+Binks. The people in the Canadian humor circles celebrate her as iconic in a way that doesn't abuse the word too much. Canada Reads shortlisted Sarah in 2003 with Will Ferguson as her advocate, and humorist Charles Gordon says the book comes as close as anything to being the quintessentially Canadian work, stressing as well that it's also damn funny. The humor flows out from knowing that we come close to being as unsophisticated here in Canada as the book suggests, but not quite. Some non-Canadian readers, in fact, missed the joke and regarded Sarah as a serious study when it first came out, and that's pretty funny too. But I guess it's not too surprising. Like all great satire, Sarah+Binks invites interpretation. You could even say the book, a pretend life history that mocks literary awards, won the Leacock+Medal for humor for making fun of the Leacock+Medal for humor. The imaginary Sarah writes bad poetry. Lots and lots of it. And it's this ability to produce quantity over quality that brings her the peculiar Wheatpool Medal and thus the fictional fame in her native province of Saskatchewan. It's called the highest award which has ever been bestowed upon one of Saskatchewan's daughters, and the highest award in the bestowal of the Saskatchewan people. The Wheatpool Medal recognizes increased production, but not in any specified field, and so, like crop planting, it's handed out through a rotational system. Now, you might laugh at some of Sarah's award-winning bad poetry in isolation, but it's that over-the-top, gushing account of her modest life experience that amplifies the humor and makes Sarah+Binks the book something different. In the voice of the biographer, Hebert tells us earnestly that Sarah's literary influences included the hired man on her farm, and her friend, Matilda, who was the least cross-eyed of the Schwanzhacker sisters. And he reports with admiration that the Horse Breeders' Gazette and other farm publications profiled her poems, and that an agricultural fair honored her work with the presentation of a horse thermometer. Sarah would die tragically at the end of the book trying to take her own temperature with that poetry prize. So, at least a few people noticed the irony when Sarah, the book, won the new and not yet acclaimed literary award, the Leacock+Medal, in 1948. Hebert was the kind of person who would have recognized and appreciated the irony too. He understood convolution. An academic and a chemistry researcher, he won the Governor General's Medal in 1924 for his science. Now, this might lead you to think that his spoof on poetry and the arts was the condescension of a hard scientist, but in fact, before his shift to chemistry, Hebert studied literature and ultimately earned an MA in the field. And I believe the book had an edge because Hebert knew the subject matter so well, and in fact had specific targets in mind, even though he did not want to overtly ridicule any individual. Although Sarah the book directs its lampoon at the field of literary criticism, it also covers some other terrain that might amuse you. From prairie politics and the cultural charms of early 20th century Canada to the drama of adolescent introspection. Hebert also calls on many writing tricks, including slapstick notions like geology-based poetry, and names like Chief Buffalo Chip, Colonel McSqueamish, Professor Marrowfat, Rosalind Drool, and Windheaver, the politician. Sarah's odes to pigs, skunks, and farm-based love jerk around, change voice, ooze conceited sounds from every pore, and that makes us laugh. But the poems usually rhyme and follow a metrical structure much of the time, and short of reciting whole poems along with Hebert's laudatory packaging, I think I'd struggle to describe to you precisely how and why Sarah's poems are just so damn funny. So maybe I should be charitable to those who read the book as the story of a real poetess. But one reason I treasure the copy on my shelf at home comes from thinking that Don and Helen Penner got the joke too, and like the early Leacock+Medal judges and other Canadians, might have just been laughing at themselves as well. Now here's a writing exercise based on Sarah+Binks. Write the worst 4-line poem you possibly can, and then explain why it is the best bit of verse ever written.